We're discussing with retreaters the light on. Is the tape moving? Did you all test it before we started? And we actually see the taping? Okay. We were discussing with the ones that retreat the very poor, most right choice that has been exercised in our craft recently in regard to listening to a meeting tape as against listening to Remington Steele, and then time permitting listening to a meeting tape.
One individual that gave until the next season after work.
Yes, if we had given the instruction that if a tape comes in, which first of all I don't see how we could have ever even given such an instruction where we would instruct you all to put some entertainment hour over new instructions. But nevertheless, we didn't give you that instruction. But it's obvious that some have enjoyed, or their priority has shown that they would rather watch Remington Steele than listen to the tape, which I must admit disturbs your teachers. And you can say, oh no, that's not the way it was, because I knew I could listen to the tape as soon as Remington Steele was over. I'm sorry, that's the way it was. You still enjoyed watching Remington Steele more than listening to the tape, or you wouldn't have put the tape second and cared. You can't, because you don't have a right to say then, well, but I couldn't have watched Remington Steele after the tape because it wasn't on. But I don't care how much, how enjoyable Remington Steele is. If he's so enjoyable to you, or any show is so enjoyable to you, that you would put off even a moment some new instructions, you're demonstrating that you can make some very serious wrong priority choices. And we just, we want you to know that we're very disappointed in this, and we hope you are, and that you can see the value of it. It's not that T and O think that the words that they say are so important, and but we hope that when we talk to you and put something on tape, when we do it, because we feel like we have something of value to put on tape. Now, it doesn't always come out in a way that maybe you can immediately see the value unless you're looking. But we don't just run the tape to send you all tape because it's time to run a tape, send a tape. We only put something on tape when we think we have something significant to pass on to you. And that significance outweighs anything of this world in our minds. We said that sure, T and O enjoy Remington Steele too, but if there was anything that we could do that was more next level activity, there wouldn't even be a question in our mind of whether or not we'd be watching Remington Steele or doing that next level activity. And for you to put off listening to the tape and watch the show really shows for that period of time where your higher priority was.
And out of the Southcraft, 4 people chose to watch TV, where the remainder of them listened to the tape. And I'm sure
the other 9.
I'm glad that I wasn't one of those 4.
And one of those 4, I couldn't listen to it that night. Had to wait and listen to the tape the next day while they still listened to Remington Steele. The other craft, the North Craft, a few brought the subject up of whether or not they should schedule Remington Steele, since there was still time to listen to the tape. But that desire wasn't strong enough to outweigh the general feeling of, well, since we can listen to the tape after Remington Steele, we'll do it that way. In other words, voicing it shows that a little something bright was trying to blossom, but she didn't let it come through. And go ahead.
What you want to know is that these are not viewing tanks, okay? That they are, it's just for entertainment and when you have nothing else to do. But you would never put human things ahead of next level things. And like I said, this may not have been the most profound tape, but I don't know of anything that we could say that would mean so much to you if we were telling you to get ready to leave, you know. But it might just have been on their tape, but you wouldn't have noticed, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
So you want to treat it as though it is important, because the point of it all is to teach you how to handle circumstances. Give you choice. We're not going to say to you, I'll tell you exactly how to handle things. However, I think I just did tell you that. Remember, you still have a choice of how you handle circumstances. The next level way or the human way, and you always want to try the next level way. Just like at retreat when you're sitting on the table. We want you to handle everything the way members of the next level would do. And when you're in your class, remember we've asked you to take all of what you have learned at retreat and try to apply back at the class. And get some practice in. And this is one way to do it. So you've got to make your own choices. We can't sit there. We don't want to. We can. But we don't want to sit down and say, this is what you have to do. By now you should know what you have to do.
Okay, let's talk about segments for a few minutes. You all have any questions first about segments? Or Rudy?
Well, right in mind, I don't know if I'm just getting off onto a philosophical tangent, but I was trying to just basically say that there are goals you can achieve that you might not have thought possible by making changes in your today's program. And I was trying to state a principle of how to decide which goals are the best kinds of those to take. Because everybody's kind of got their own idea of what's right and wrong. And I'm not sure how to say it, or even if it's something that is important to say. Or
well, you don't want goals like you can make more money.
Right.
If you learn this, because you don't care ultimately, but you do care that you can be more the captain of your ship, and you can not let things rule you. T and I lately have been talking about. Can I tell them what those publications, and maybe they could think. Like we mentioned to you once that even though we didn't like it, we said you could think of in terms that you were writing segments that might be on the shelf in the vestibule of the Church of Genetic Improvement or something. Okay, let's turn that around and say you're writing little articles for a little newspaper that's called Turnaround News. And turnaround meaning anything that would help you turn your life or the trends or the world around. Do you see what we're saying? When things are moving in a wrong direction in an individual's life or in a society or general trend in thinking or anything else. In other words, think in terms of your segments or little articles that you're writing for a newspaper, monthly newspaper or bi-monthly newspaper or weekly newspaper, that every article in it is slanted toward turning a trend around, or turning not necessarily a trend of a habit around, or turning a wrong into a right, with the theme of change for the better. Do you understand that?
I was just, maybe it was just a case, but I was thinking that some people are going to have the idea of, if I say it's better to not be promiscuous, then obviously some people are going to feel that way.
Well, but see, it's not. You can't say it's better to not be promiscuous. Why is it better?
Right. That's what the part I wanted to get
I
to.
can tell you why it's better. From a human standpoint. Can't you not?
From a human standpoint, because it feels good.
No, I said I can tell you why it's better not to be promiscuous.
Oh, okay.
Can you not?
From a human standpoint?
Yes.
Well, there's one thing, it's disease, there's lack of self-esteem.
Well, there's a lot of things, and you named a couple of them, but, you know, T and I said this morning that it was funny that the trend is like they tell you take this vitamin or take this thing to improve your health, and it also will improve your sex life. And somebody could write an article on saying, goodness, I keep hearing everything how to improve my sex life. And I've worked for so many years on improving my sex life, and now I'd like to work toward how to do the opposite. Instead of improve my sex life, I want to reduce my sex life, because I began to realize that my sex life was controlling my life. It was my motivation for everything. It captivated my thoughts. I couldn't even keep my mind on my work. It was just a thing, a disease that engulfed me. And the last thing I want to do is let it encompass me more than it has already. I'm trying to get out of it. Now, what I tried so hard for so long to get into, I mean, you can talk in terms like that, and humans can begin to see the value of it. You can't say life would be better if you were celibate. What? How? You know? In other words, don't make any statements like that, because that's like laying something on somebody. But if you say, goodness, I recognize that the direction I was going as far as my sex life was concerned was just leading to the destruction of my whole freedom. I couldn't do anything. Every time I saw somebody, I thought, how would she look in bed? I couldn't keep my mind on my work. I certainly never had any thoughts about how to better my life. It was, how could I have more sexual activity? The next thing I knew, after my third visit to the doctor, to take stronger and stronger doses of penicillin or whatever it was to try to get rid of the things that I had picked up on the side of trying to improve my sex life, I began to wonder, something's wrong here. I've put so much emphasis on that I am now a slave to it. You see what I'm saying? And if you talk like that, it'll hit home with a lot of people, because a lot of people have begun to recognize that they are slaves to things that the trend has told them get more of, do more of.
Let me ask this one here. Also, way back in the 40s, when gonorrhea and syphilis were real, in this area was very strong. In fact, most in the lower class people, it seemed to be very prominent. You know, I don't know if it's because they had no restraint or what, you know, but the health department taught that, let's use gonorrhea for instance, was caused by a strain or overuse of the sex organ. And they thought that, because I would always say, well, where did it start from? You know, like what came first, the egg or the chicken, you know? And they said, well, it comes from a strain. And then I thought, from a strain, what do they mean by a strain? And then they said, well, by overuse of the sex organ. You know, so it must, I think by now that they learned a little bit more, because as the vehicle becomes weakened, then it's more susceptible to that particular bug. Now, the past 20 years since they first realized that, the vehicles have broken down. And in other words, I've never seen so many bad vehicles. Like in the Denver area, Doe and I would be riding along the street, and you would see very few perfect vehicles. Perfect meaning no deformities of any kind. They either walk funny or held the neck in a certain way or limped or, something. One arm longer than the other, or and what is causing all that? And in my mind, the more sex you have, the weaker you become, where you can produce a stronger vehicle. In other words, if you want to have, way back in the days when our parents and our grandparents, I'm talking about T and those, were young, people only had sex when they wanted children. And probably very seldom did they have it in between. In other words, it wasn't...
Some of them, like sometime back, a couple of 2 or 3 decades ago, the religious conservatives felt like for even a married couple to have sex other than because they wanted to have an offspring, that it was immoral. It was an immoral act, considered almost as bad by certain strains of conservative religious groups as promiscuity.
In other words, if you want to have a vehicle, a child, if you want an offspring, then you have to prepare your vehicle for a good offspring. One that has a good mind, free of disease and free of deformity. And by doing that, you've got to control your vehicle. Meaning you've got to not weaken the vehicle so much so that when conception does occur, you can have anything but a weak or strong vehicle, depending on how you use your body. In other words, we want to encourage people to take sex more as a method of creating another force, not as the main source of entertainment.
Passion should not have ever been applied, theoretically, to the sex act. It dawned on humans that the sex act was something they could label sensuously exciting. But sensuousness and passion should have never been applied to the sex act. It completely turned its place upside down, because then it became a sensation that people sought for. Where in the early stages of civilization, when, in other words, a moral, intelligent person who had risen above the animal stage was not a victim of passion and sensuality. But that was animal characteristic. That even when he had a sex act because they chose to have offspring, and would have been the only time they did, that was because that was the way intelligent, moral people lived. And the sex act, they never thought of the feeling that arrived during the sex act as something of pleasure. That they were just experiencing what the vehicle felt in the process of attempting to have an offspring. But then attempting to have an offspring became the extra thing. And sensuality became the primary thing, the sensation and the passion. And so much now that, like T and I said the other day, all the shows, everything else is how to have more contraceptives, how to have better birth control, how to set yourself up so that you can have zero blockage from passion. In other words, so you can have this sensation or sensuality or passion as often, as many times a day, or anything as you can take, and consider your life more exciting. Instead of recognizing that that's even worse than the animal. I mean, lower than the animal. The animal isn't even that sensuous, as humans have become. You see what we're saying? And you would think that by this time the medical society and the psychologists and the psychiatrists would join with the medical society merely because of venereal diseases and weaknesses to say, we're going to have to learn, the public is going to have to learn some restraint in this regard.
Well, it's even been proven. Look at Superman. Of course, he's just a fictitious person, but they, when he had sex in Superman 2, he became weak, right? Now, what makes people, basically that's right. I firmly believe that the more people have sex, that they do not become stronger, they become weaker.
Now, they think they're stronger because they are so happy about the experience they just had. In other words, they feel so good about having had the sensation that they make themselves think that they're stronger, that they even thrive on that. And it's because they thrive on the indulgence. You see what we're saying? Even though it's breaking them down. But since it was fun and brightens their life, it makes them feel stronger. You see, even though it's an illusion.
But it's just the treatment of eating that's all it is. And eventually they get
And
tired.
lowering its vibration. It has a literal vibration. The vehicle has a literal vibration where the genes, the characteristics in the genes, the kind of thoughts, the kind of actions that the higher kind of thoughts and actions of the genes become suppressed as the lower aspects and characteristics of the genes become so dominant. And when a person is so sensual, the good aspect retreats because the others are at the forefront, preoccupying your mind and your activities. Do you follow that?
I kept getting a picture of almost like what happens with the drug addiction.
That's right.
Seems such a parallel.
Well, it is. It's a perfect parallel. It's a perfect parallel. Because you can get all of you all know, good. Who would know more than you, who have battled with addictions of all nature, know that the sex is just it's as strong as heroin to most vehicles. It's like the withdrawal of it is just an extremely difficult thing. And so the more it is permitted to increase in activity and desire and thought of, and you change the programming of the genes over to thinking it's good, then look at what you have to unravel in order to turn that around. It's no easy task.
The people can say, well, what can you have in marriage if you have sex only when you want children? What do you do if you don't want any children? In other words, I believe you can
be the best marriage that existed because it'd be friends.
The male would have his
That's
job,
right.
and if the female worked, she would have her job, and they would have a beautiful companionship.
It would be the best marriage that existed. One without sex would be absolutely the best marriage. Because with sex in your life, you can hate each other, you can do everything, but you go jump in bed all the time, make up. But if there was no making up, you wouldn't live with anybody but a friend. Do you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Then it would be a perfect relationship because you'd be friends and partners.
There would be no jealousy.
There wouldn't be any jealousy there.
Now, another thing, let's say you want children and you have a couple of children and the wife stays home to take care of the children and the husband goes to work. He has more time to put in on his work. The woman has time to mold the children and to take care of the house. And then when they're together, they work together, doing things with the children, or even going out with the husband and wife to operas or whatever they want to go to for entertainment. In other words, the whole marriage thing is centered around sex. If they aren't good sex partners, then they feel like they're not compatible, so they get a divorce.
Now, their life can be terrible in all other aspects, but if they're good sex partners, then they feel like that'll take care of everything else will take care of itself.
In other words, man
We can throw things at each other, we can be furious, we can do everything else, but as long as we can climb in bed once in a while, make up, you know.
As long as man is choosing to lower their vibration by making sex the most important thing in the marriage, they will never reach a state of improvement. Now, we're talking about this now because you all can make people realize through, hopefully, your own individual computers, your method of writing things, of letting people know that people have gotten off the track, so to speak. And there's nothing...
We're an advanced society. We're supposed to be becoming an advanced civilization.
We're getting weaker vehicles. You can look in every city, there are hospitals galore. And doctors are the wealthiest people in the city, just about. So, it has to be that the vehicles are weak. They blame it on the food that you eat. The soil is good. Well, there are vitamins every place. You can take all kinds of vitamins to supplement the bad food. But the vehicles are still breaking down. And what is causing it other than getting rid of having sex often that it weakens you and weakens the eggs that are sent out from the male and female, and therefore you end up with some kind of monstrosity or deformity or something like that.
Say if the next level had their way with humans, and humans wanted to do what the next level wanted them to do, they would, the sensuality would be taken out of the life altogether, and offsprings would be having to artificial insemination.
And I guarantee everybody could live through it.
Yes, and there would be offspring, even having offspring, it's still a form of primitive man to have an offspring through that kind of act. You see? In other words, the information that has come down to scientists regarding artificial insemination and test tube babies and so forth is a step forward. It's another attempt to help humans, if they want to take advantage of taking the animal out of their life and still having offspring.
So if you're writing anything that, in other words, you can't tell somebody, talk to them, everybody else, in regards to what you ask. What you want to do is not talk about their giving it up. What you want to do is talk about how to improve their vehicles and in other words,
upgrade their lives
and
become more civilized.
Give them a reason. What's the purpose of it? It's like, you know, when a person, let's use an individual who's been an alcoholic for several years, and they join AA and give up alcohol. And they get past the DTs and get their vehicles built up. And most of the time they realize how good they feel after being off the alcohol. I've heard many alcoholics say that because they have a new concept. They see things through different eyes.
They haven't seen for years.
Mentally they feel better and they can breathe and they're not bunged up all the time, from bumping into things. No car accidents to pay for, no pictures. And, their whole life has taken a new turn for the better. And in a sense, people who try to improve themselves by getting rid of the lower animal instinct or improving on the lower animal instinct can help them feel better.
Well, I guess I didn't say it. So the only thing I had in mind coming out of my statement was it's better to be celibate than people.
But she did make a statement that didn't sound like it would be one that a human would buy.
What I wanted to do was, before I gave an example like you would suggest it, was give a general definition of what it means to improve yourself and appeal to them on an intellectual basis. You know, if this is your definition of self-improvement, not necessarily being excellent, but doing things in a way that brings you better health, you know.
Well, where you're in control.
Right.
And you want the things that you have been brainwashed to be addicted to control your life, or do you want to control your life?
What I didn't have clear in my mind was how to present a generalized definition of what better, good, and self-improvement was before I gave an example. And I wasn't sure how to word it.
Well, I'll try. See, I wondered if it would be okay if, when any of these are right segments, if they wanted to ask somebody to read their segment, and perhaps because it's not more than one or two. In other words, you could let a person or two read your segment and give you some thoughts about it if you want to, but don't let more than a couple. It gets too widespread and too many different ideas. But not more than one or two.
I have a question that's kind of on the subject of genes. Remember the book you guys about the Lost Book of Eden you talked about? The Lost Book of Eden, where God fitted Adam and Eve with digestive organs? Well, when we first got the book, I kind of envisioned them splitting them open and sewing in the stomach, but now I realize that maybe what he did was make changes in whatever genes they might have had or added to their genes so that their own body grew those things as a result of the genetic capacity.
Well, I think that they had some things, they just weren't activated.
The potential was there. The body was created in such a way that those could develop. It's just like a strain through generations can get larger organ, this organ or that organ, depending upon how the history of that family tree has used those organs. You know, whether it's the stomach or your hands, or because they all work with their hands, and so they start passing down vehicles that have that show what has been prominent in the history of predecessors.
Those are the same kinds of adaptations that the evolutionists talk about, like one species of animal developed this way because its environment made it necessary to have this kind of separation.
In a way, even though those are pretty general.
Then, in trying to come up with an outline before I started on all this, and to try and see, you know, how much I needed to cover and in what order and how to be organized, it looked like on my outline, at least, the first part was just a general introduction and a background and kind of giving you enough to think about that motivated you so you could, at the end of it, yes, that's me, that's what I want to do, and didn't give any real how-tos until the segments that you read after that. How to relax, how to that. Is that okay if you've got...
Well, but they still need to be like in one article or one segment.
Well, it's all in one piece, and then after that, the next section, if you're ready to go and you want to do this, then you learn how to relax. How do you reach your subconscious in your mind? How do you feed programming into it? How do you...
Well, you just go ahead and we'll read it.
The only one...
Now, we want to stay away from anything that sounds like silver mind control or meditation techniques or... we're approaching it strictly from a logical standpoint of if you feel like your life is going down this drain because of this, here's something that I recognized that my life was going down the drain in the same way, and that by doing such and such, I began to get it out of the drain piece by piece, and now I've got only a foot left in the drain, and I'm working on getting it out. You see, it's that kind of concept that it's like someone who was a victim of the brainwashing trend is writing, recognized that he was a victim of those trends and discovered a way out that's beginning to take him out of it. And he wants to share the fact that he has discovered a way out. It's like Norodi said that someone at her task had recently had overheard her talk about, well, you don't have to do that. You can change your habit. You don't have to let anger just come out when it wants to. So she was saying this to somebody, and kind of lightly, but a man was overhearing this, and he began to apply it to his own life. And much to Norodi's surprise, he came up the other day and said, you know what, you're right. It works. He said, I decided that I was going to try to...
He didn't get mad at somebody driving in the car to work, and he restrained himself.
That I'm just not going to let that mad happen as fast as I used to. Things like that. In other words, he heard from Norodi some little hints in this direction, and thought he'd try them. And sure enough, he's real proud all of a sudden that he's heard something new that works.
But see, the thing there is that that's a very simple thing. And how is he going to respond when his wife starts fussing at him about something, or one of his children? In other words, how is he going to respond under difficult circumstances? And this is what you want to help people.
What seems to be provoked circumstances.
Right. Now, let's go back. Now, Kadoti, you mentioned something about relaxing. You do not have to relax to program your Jesus. In other words, you can do it driving in a car, just like this one man, as Sam did, that Bill was talking about, that Norodi was involved with. In other words, if you see a car start in front of you, instead of cursing them or getting angry over them, you can say, I'm not going to let that affect me.
When you feel that feeling start to happen, say, I'm not going to get into that. It's just not worth it.
It's just like if you're working with somebody in the lab and someone is acting impossible, you can say to yourself, I'm not going to let that person affect me.
Actually, it does more good. The kind of programming T's talking about, which is on-the-spot programming, does 1,000 times more good than going off and programming yourself out of the situation.
Now, if you get so mad at something where your vibrations are really affected, you might have to go off and relax and calm yourself and say, I'm not going to let that disturb me until your vehicle gets under control. But hopefully you can stop yourself before it gets that bad.
But the programming you do when you're not being tested or not being provoked doesn't necessarily work. It's the programming when you're being tested and being provoked, which is the actual on-the-spot restraint. That's where programming really takes place. Significant programming.
And it's so easy, it's really easy to do, and people just don't realize. If they become aware that the vehicle acts out of habit. Like this morning on TV, I glanced at something when the TV was on, and there was a segment coming up on some program that said, bad habits are hard to break. What are they doing but programming you to believe that any habit you have is hard to break? And it isn't any harder to break than a good habit. In other words, you can develop a bad habit just much easier than you can develop a good habit. So in fact, it ought to be worded a good habit is more difficult to develop. Am I getting tangled up here?
Oh, you do a lot of habits that aren't necessarily bad habits, and you can change them. But they've been taught to think that bad habits are a lot harder to change, which they aren't. The only reason they're harder to change if they're stronger.
Good habits are hard to change.
Yes, good habits are hard. Well, don't you want to change for good habits?
I know, but the bad habits aren't the only ones hard to change. That's what I was trying to get to. You see what I'm saying? You don't want to change the good ones, but it isn't only the bad ones that are hard to change.
It's true that if they were a very low vibration habit, and you indulge significantly, then it takes considerable effort and a willingness to apply that effort. You see what we're saying? Just like the heroin addict or you have to really see the value and choose to do it. Otherwise, like if you're so hooked you can't even see, the reason it's hard to break the habit is because you're not even sure you want to break it. Right? That's the reason it's hard to break it. If you saw that you were sure you wanted to break it and could see the advantage of breaking it, it suddenly wouldn't be difficult any longer. It would take a period of discipline and endurance, but it would not be a difficult task. It's only seen as difficult when you're kind of wavering as to whether or not you're really sure you want to change it.
Now, somebody, let's use Neurodia again as an example. Let's say that person who Neurodia had talked to about disease, or who came to her about how it works and so on, and he says to her, do you have any more information on this? Where did you know about this? Now, this can apply to anybody if you present it to somebody and they ask you that question. You can say, well, I have some friends who are doing some papers on this. They're in the process of writing them and writing articles, and they should be ready in a short time. And then hopefully that person will say, well, as soon as you get some more information on this, we will let you know about it. And there's nothing wrong, it doesn't, so to tell others about it, but you wouldn't instigate it. You want them to ask until we get something published, and then we can take it up and see if they're interested in it.
What's the name of our newspaper? That's right. General, what's your question?
I want to check if it's okay to take the approach of these FDAs, and I've been doing this and I've discovered...
Sure, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't say it's anything wrong. No, you can make it personal. Whether it's true or not, if you... well, of course, I don't know why you couldn't be true. You all have had enough topics to write about that you are certainly the victims of. But we don't mind it being personal in that sense, that you could say, I recognize that my life was a slave to this, and I got to finally wake up one day and thought that I thought I'd been striving for freedom, the freedom to be a sensuous, to be, for example. You see what I'm saying? Instead of freedom, it was the freedom to get enslaved. I chose to become enslaved, and now I've got to carry the ball and chain around with me, and decided that I want to start getting rid of it. But you can be personal, my experience, that kind of thing. If you want to, it doesn't mean that all of them need to be. But you can look at this kind of like a little newspaper that would have all kinds of different articles in it, but they're all slanted toward turnaround. Okay, everything is geared toward turnaround.
I was wondering, several times on TV when you were going to talk to us, I heard you use the expression nirvana, and I was thinking of writing a paper. Jokingly, I was thinking of writing a paper, and I was going to call it the Nirvana Syndrome. They're out to achieve some glorious thing, that's going to make life all a bit of roses for them, and it's really just, like...
Very fast.
Right, passive, and it's like the sensuality thing. I think I'm getting more into it, and suddenly their life is going to be, rich and fulfilling. And
now, nirvana wouldn't be the right word, because if you're going to use the word, you ought to use it in its proper definition.
People will be turned off.
Because nirvana actually means having arrived at a state of nothingness, finding happiness through nothing. In other words, I finally come to zero, and therefore I've reached nirvana.
But it's also yoga, like saying you don't want to have that kind of thing. You can use nothingness, reach a state of nothingness, meaning nothing bothers you, passiveness, or something like that. So you want to avoid any kind of,
Or utopia, you know, that might be a term that might apply to what you were talking about, because people do think, if I have all these things and all that, I've got my little utopia, you know.
I guess I was equating, I was equating nirvana with utopia.
No.
no, it's definitely, where the mystics try to reach.
It's a psychological state of being untouched by anything.
Buddhists and Hindus, I think, try to nirvana. And we're not saying,
You've arrived once you've reached zero.
I have a little difficulty that maybe some others are having when I go to write, and I'll kind of get excited about something, and I'll think that's kind of a good idea, you know, and I'll write a couple pages of paper, and then I'll come back the next day to improve on them and get them rearranged and everything, and I do that, and then I come back the next day and I read it, and I think I appreciate it. It's like it enlarges my
It loses its